Today is August 2nd, 2026. I'm Todd Agasawar. This is Mobile Views Podcast 621. The good Dr. John Westfall is not here with us, but I am very fortunate to have our mutual old friend. He's not old. Again, people, Sven Johansson tell me, stop calling people old friends. Our longtime mutual friend, Jason Dunn. Hey, Jason, good to see you.
Fantastic. Thanks for having me on, Todd. Appreciate it.
Thanks for making time. I really appreciate it. So your last appearance was on, January 29th, 2023. So we have not spoken, virtually face to space in 3.5 years.
It's been a minute. Yeah.
A lot of tech stuff has happened between now and then. So we can catch up. I did want to mention that, I don't know if you've tried Google Spark, or even if you've tried any of the Google Gemini type stuff, but Google Spark, which was available to only the rich people, the $200 a month Google Ultra subscribers, came down to regular people like me who pay $20 a month.
Yeah.
And so I only tried it once. It's kind of, it's one of those agentic builders. I only tried it once, but it's kind of interesting. So what I had to do, Jason, is I said, hey, go look at all of the show notes for Mobile Views podcasts, which goes back years, well over a decade now. 12 years now. And go look through all our notes. Go look through a whole bunch of tech news sources like TechMeme and those kind of places. And I gave it kind of a list of starter sites. Mm-hmm. And every day at 6 p.m. Eastern, which is noon my time, generally speaking, summarize the news for the day based on the things we've, John and I and people like you and our other friends have talked about for 12 years now. And so it goes out and comes back and gives me a little formatted report. Is it really useful so far? It's interesting. I'm not sure it's useful, but it could be me. Maybe I just didn't build it the way I should have, or I didn't prompt it the way I should have, I should say. I guess I didn't build anything. But I continue to be fascinated by the whole ecosystem that Google has. And I've dabbled with some other things, but I've been mostly Google-ish because I got a free Pro account when I bought my new Pixel last year.
Well, yeah, so you raise a really interesting point, right? I think one of the most interesting challenges for the newcomers, OpenAI and Anthropic and all these other companies, is how little moat there is, like how little kind of defensible space some of these companies have. Because like you, I primarily use Gemini. So last year, when I started, wanting to dabble a little bit, but I feel like I started dabbling maybe in like 24, because I think that's when kind of ChatGPT started blowing up. I toyed with it a little bit just at the free account level, and I was like, okay. At the time, it wasn't super impressive. Back then, 24 hallucinations, I think, were very normal, and that was all the, glue. That was like the glue on pizza era, I think, of AI,
yes.
right?
Yes.
So didn't find it particularly impressive. Then in 25, because I pay Google, it's like $200 a year for 5 terabytes of Google Drive and Google Photo storage. So the main thing is I spend money with Google for my photos and videos that stay online. Then I had, the free Google AI account. So I started playing with Gemini because I had the Pro tier. So then that was actually most of my experience in 2025. Mm-hmm. And then in 26, after I lost my Amazon job, I was like, okay, I need to, I think, get more hands-on with, an industry-leading tool. And I decided to go with Claude, Anthropic.
Yeah.
And so started playing with that. But it's interesting, right, that in a lot of ways, especially as the models all become equally excellent, there's not a lot of differentiation. And someone can, I think, pretty easily switch, especially with like memory transfer and the ability to go from one to the other. If I was leading AI at Google, I would be less worried than I would be if I was leading AI, at OpenAI, where I go like, okay, if someone wants to switch, like what's actually stopping them other than maybe muscle memory and familiarity with the app?
Right,
and so I think it's easier than ever to bounce around between AI tools.
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of like even bouncing between operating systems, right? It used to be really hard to go from a Windows system to a Mac to Linux to what. Now it's like, hey, everything's in a browser. Can you use because your browser work on whatever it is, then you're okay 90% of the time.
Pretty good.
Yeah. That said, I guess for me, the biggie is I've got so much invested in Google in terms of documents that I've stored there for decades now.
Yes, yes.
That
So
and
you
Gemini,
actually
so
have, like, you're
yeah,
very bought into that. Yeah, you're right.
yeah.
You're right.
So for me personally, right? I'm not saying for anybody else, but for people like me, and it could be the same if you got most of your stuff in OneDrive, SharePoint, or whatever.
Mhm,
Then
mhm.
Copilot Pro is probably the best way for you to go, or whatever. But like you said, Anthropic and OpenAI, they're integrating more. I think OpenAI has partnered with a whole bunch of like design firms and stuff that plug right into
Yes.
it now.
Yeah, Figma and those types of tools. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's it's going to be really interesting because there's going to be a shakeup at some point. Um,
Well, yeah, everyone's talking,
again,
when will the bubble burst, right? When
yeah,
will these things hit the wall, or hit the
yeah,
fan? You raise an interesting point, right, about, where your data is stored. And I think that's kind of
yeah,
interesting. So I still primarily use Google. Like, other than my photos and videos, I
yeah.
don't use Google Drive for much of anything. I don't
Uh,
use, so I'm a little more old school. I have my Microsoft Exchange account,
mm-hmm.
so I'm using Outlook over here. At one point, I tried to tie in Anthropic, Claude into Outlook, and the list of permissions barely fit on my screen. Like, it was this massive list that kind of scared me. I was like, oh my God, this is like a lot of permissions. And, my emails, 20 plus years of archived stuff. So I actually backed away, and I
Right.
actually didn't give Claude permission because I was a little bit
Yeah.
freaked out by that.
Yeah.
But most of my documents are kind of on my hard drive. So it's interesting. Yeah. So for you, Gemini, I think, has a much broader picture of who Todd is and the stuff that
Yes,
Todd cares
absolutely.
about. Whereas most of my AI tool use is actually more situational and, vibe coding and other sorts of things. So it's
Yes,
really
yes.
interesting how people plug into these tools. And then, yeah, the switching costs for you, the switching costs would be very high. But
Yeah.
since I sort of bounce around at a different layer, AI is simultaneously a little less useful for me because I can't, I don't use Google Calendar. So Gemini
Right.
thinks I never have any appointments. So I kind of exist at this weird
Good
level.
point.
Yeah, yeah.
Good point. You're just you're just a do nothing from its point of view. Like, this guy doesn't have a life.
Is this guy even alive? We should do a wellness check on him. He hasn't had an appointment in 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's going, like I said, it's going to be interesting also because I guess Apple, and I always Don and John are explaining this to me. But
Mhm.
Apple is going to do local AI for Apple Intelligence, but also lets you plug into Gemini. So to the extent
Mhm.
that Apple Intelligence allows you to kind of shift between the local model or the local data store for AI, which they keep private, and then go to Gemini, it's going to be interesting because at least the tools will be familiar, even if the data sources are kept, in different sandboxes. So that'll
Yeah,
be
I
interesting.
think Apple's approach is really fascinating. Obviously,
Yeah.
they've been pretty, widely mocked or, derided for the way
Oh
that they
yeah.
dropped the ball on AI. And certainly with the announcements they made, in 24 and in 25, showing things that were fabricated, videos that didn't actually work. Like, they deserve
Yes.
all the scorn, but it's also fascinating to see how little money they've invested.
Yeah.
They're one of the only big FANG companies that hasn't gone down the road of 50, 80, $100 billion in CapEx expenditure. They're just kind of
Yeah.
sitting back, which is a very Apple thing to do, right? Let's sit back,
Yeah.
let's wait for the chips to fall, and let's figure out what works and what doesn't. And at the end of the day, as John Gruber, right, from Daring Fireball, always points out, it doesn't matter so much what the AI stack if everyone's running it on an iPhone. So Apple still wins in a lot of cases. Now, not
Yeah.
globally, Android still
Yeah.
matters, of course, around the world. But
Sure.
yeah, it is interesting that Apple has not burned, tens of billions of dollars on AI build out. So in some ways you
Yeah.
can be like, yeah, maybe they're going to come out the least bruised if there is an AI bubble pop. So who knows?
Right. Right. Yeah. And all the data center, harshness, harsh
A
opinions
lot of
and things. So,
negativity. Yep.
I'm
Yeah.
sure within Apple, there are people saying, why don't we just buy Oklahoma? you know, and maybe build a data center there. You know, and I'm thinking Oklahoma. Sorry, folks in Oklahoma, but you know, they have enough money to just buy a state if they really wanted to.
Exactly, exactly. But even the local LLM stuff is also interesting. You know,
Yeah.
there's a particular word for it where they sort of like can miniaturize an LLM, you know, and take it from billions of parameters down to hundreds of
Yeah.
millions, and then it actually, you know, will fit in memory on a
Right.
device. And that I think is very, very interesting, because obviously the more you can take advantage of the hardware locally, you know, latency improves. You don't need the level of data center investments, because, you know, our phones, our laptops, these are already distributed data centers, right? They have tremendous compute power locally.
Sure.
But there's all these constraints that they need to figure out. Yeah, so it could be that Apple, and I'm interested to see what Google does this year and next year, you know, with their hardware and with Android, to see how they take advantage of local processing.
Well, it's going to be interesting because from what I've been reading, you know, I've got a Google Google 10 Pro, whatever, from
The
last year.
Pixel?
Yeah, and it's a Pixel.
Yeah,
Sorry, and the
yeah.
Pixel 11 apparently is going to cost more because, you know, everything costs more now.
Everything does, yeah.
And it's going to have less memory, which is like, duh. You know, but hey, what you going to do if you can't buy enough? You can't put it in, right?
Yes,
but it's going to be really interesting, I think, to see what that's going to mean for just end users. You know, not so much enterprises. We're going to have to pay regardless, I guess. But you know, now what do we do? You know, are the models going to somehow become more efficient? Why they don't just ask the AI to vibe code to make themselves more efficient?
Yes, the whole AI making itself better. I mean, people talk about it, but yeah, I guess we'll see if that happens.
Yeah. So anyway, that's kind of what. Anyway, so Google Spark, playing with it a little. I know I'm late to get. John's been playing the agentic stuff for like forever, I think, and you know, vibe coding like yourself.
He's very far down that path.
Yeah.
You can barely see him. He's so far off in the distance.
And in fact, even local LLMs, right? He's been playing with that also, as I recall. But the other thing, by the way, if you haven't looked at it, is Google Dream Beans. It's in Google Labs. It is really fascinating.
Oh, what is that one?
Yeah, so Dream Beans, one word, Google Dream Beans and Google AI Labs. What it does is, if you give it permission to look at your photos and your Google Docs and your mail and all of that every morning at, I think, 4 a.m. Hawaii times, it summarizes stuff for me, saying, hey, you know, there's a restaurant that's, you know, about 2 miles from where you are that you might be interested in, or there's an activity here, or hey, there's a new development in, you know, e-ink that, you know, we noticed you've been asking questions about e-ink displays, you know, that sort of thing.
Okay.
And it suggests things to do, things to look at, things to consider. It's got illustrations of yourself and your friends and family, which is kind of freaky.
Yeah.
Based on photos, and I tag people in my photos, so it knows, you know, names of people. And it seems to figure out relationships like my daughter and, you know, that sort of thing. But anyway, Google Dream Beans, it's kind of fun. If, again, you're not afraid to basically have Google know even more than they already know, which is, I think, everything anyway. So, you know, so, you know, I'm foolishly unconcerned, I guess. But yeah, I would recommend that. I look at mine every morning. Every morning I wake up. One of the earliest things I do, even before I grab a cup of whatever, coffee or whatever, is like, hey, what did Dreams Beans decide is interesting for me this morning?
So I'm looking at it, and you must have got in early on a certain window, because there's a wait list, and it is only available to Google AI Ultra subscribers.
Oh,
and
no,
I'm not an Ultra subscriber.
You want an invitation?
Yeah, invite me. That's what the webpage says. So they must have changed the.
Yeah, I've got 3 invitations. I'll send you one.
Wow, excellent. Thank you. Looks interesting.
So it is interesting. Again, if you are not, and again, I am foolishly unconcerned. I know I should be more concerned than I am. But just to give you an idea, so this morning, let's see what interesting things has it decided. There's a Vietnamese pho place nearby that says I should go there, you know, before I get my hair cut. And
nice.
it says, hey, you can use Gemini for Mac OS. There's a Gemini app for Mac OS now.
Yeah. I use
To
it.
format my podcast show notes. I already have Google Docs for that, but okay. It says, hey, there's a history of the Trans-Pacific fiber. Actually, it's not fiber, the Hall 1, which was copper, the first voice cable in the Pacific Ocean to Hawaii. So you might want to read that. And it says you have invitations, so I'll send you one of those. It recommends recommends a 1987 album, a Japanese music album. Never heard of this group, but I will give it a listen because it thinks I might be interested in for some.
Well,
mostly 'cause I'm
that's
old.
interesting. Yeah.
It's got a recommendation for a new novel, I
Mhm.
guess. Before it's released. And navigate Microsoft 365 licensing updates for nonprofits. Oh, that's a thrilling read, I'm sure. And I have had to read that, unfortunately. I was helping out a nonprofit. But
Wow. So it knows a lot about you then, obviously. It really knows. Yeah.
And it says, hey, there's a retrospective on the HP 320 LX PC that you might be interested in.
Oh, that brings us back. Yeah.
So it knows a lot, and it knows that it's
Mhm.
hot here and that I should give leafy greens to our pet rabbit. So,
So Dream Beans knows you pretty well then, because it has access to a lot of your data. That's very interesting.
it does. It does.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
since you haven't tried it, I will make a note to send you an invitation. And if I don't, just
Sure.
remind me, because old
Thank you.
people,
Yeah.
got to remind them. One other thing, I know you're mostly Mac and Windows. I don't think you've used Chromebooks much, but I am interested in the new Google book that's supposedly coming out any day now.
Yes.
Because I've been using Chromebooks for years now, and it's
you were an early adopter of Chromebooks.
Yeah, well, I don't know about early, because I'm middle, but about 10 years. I've been using about 10 years, and it's gotten kind of stale, to be honest. And the fact that they don't upgrade, past a certain year, like Windows, you can turn your Windows box into a Linux box. Mac does about 7 years, and Chrome was like, some of them were like 3 or 4, and they couldn't get upgrades.
That's pretty disappointing. That just turns it to the e-waste. Or can you turn a Chromebook into a Linux?
You
machine,
can. There is Chrome actually has something called Flex OS, I think, that is Chrome that you can boot from a USB drive and install in anything, including a Windows box.
Okay. Yeah.
But get this, my Chromebooks are aged out of it for full support.
Oh no.
Yeah, they're deprecated out of the list. So, so the answer is I probably could, but it doesn't. I probably could still install it. It just wouldn't be fully supported.
Yeah.
But like you said, at this point, I think I have an e-waste event coming up in 2 weeks, so I've got a broken Chromebook that will probably, sadly, go there instead of doing something else. Not because it can't be upgraded, because there are parts of it that doesn't work, like the keyboard.
Yeah, I prefer to give things away or sell them or donate them or whatever. But yeah, it is unfortunate when eventually hardware just gives up, and yes, sometimes software, the engineers that work on the software also give up. But that's just the way it goes. For me, if something gives me about 5 years of use, I'm like, okay, you've done your duty. Thank you for your service. I appreciate 5 years and that's good. But there's some people. I saw somebody who, I want to say they had a Mac laptop, like a MacBook from I don't know, 2017 or something like that, and they were mad that they weren't going to get updates anymore. And it's like, that thing's giving you damn near 10 years of use. Like you should use it. That's not unreasonable. But some people are they think that software development is free, and that they should continue to get updates and whatever. And I don't know if LLMs will change any of this, but even if they could, the companies don't want you using. Apple wants that person to buy a new MacBook, right? They don't want
every couple of years, at least.
Yeah.
Although they do a fantastic job, in my opinion, of keeping us updated.
I think they're excellent at it. Yeah.
In fact, I had a 2008, 2009, let's call it 2008 iMac. From back in the day, of course, and it finally, it couldn't be updated. I mean, years and years ago, it couldn't be updated, but basically, it stopped doing anything.
Yeah.
But look, fortunately, I didn't even have to look for an e-waste event because Apple recycles stuff. And so I hauled it
That's
down to the
great.
local Apple store, and they said, yep, we'll take it off your hands. And hey, we'll give you a little bit of credit. So, like $10
Yeah.
or something for e-waste credit.
Yeah. No, that's great. I think it's great. And Apple is far better than most. And I think, they have it easiest to keep things updated because they tightly control, the hardware and software stack.
Yes,
but
yes.
On the Windows side of the fence, it's just so hit and miss. I mean, I remember I bought this, Acer laptop for my son, and I want to say maybe it came out with Windows. Maybe it came up with Windows 8, and then I think I did a Windows 10, Windows 10 update for it.
Yeah.
And it installed fine. But then every single time you would close the lid or try to do, sleep, it would hard crash the whole operating system.
Oh, wow.
You had to reboot it from scratch.
Yeah.
And I did all this research, and I feel like when I bought it, it was maybe it's like just right at the end of the cycle. And so it was only about 3 years old in terms of, the operating system switch, and Acer had already given up. And so, because ultimately this was like a firmware, or a low-level driver thing, and they had already given up and moved on to the next product. So this thing was just cursed to just essentially always have this problem. And that's I think the biggest frustration for me with Windows stuff is you just know that 6 months after it gets released, that manufacturer is on to the next version, and they really could care less about their customers using that other version. So
the Microsoft Windows strength is that you have so many choices in hardware, and its weakness is you have so many choices in hardware.
Exactly. Yes, that is both the blessing and the curse of having a wide open platform like that.
In fact, I bought it. I remember, this is again old. This is 2019. I think before the first tariff threat at the time. I said, well, I better go upgrade all my stuff. So I bought a new Windows laptop. I bought a new MacBook, that kind of thing. And so I got a nice HP AMD based Windows 10 Windows 10 laptop in 2019. And it still runs fine. And it's got TPM 2.0, and it's got lots of RAM. It's got a big heart. Can't upgrade to Windows 11 because that particular Ryzen CPU is not compatible. So I installed Linux on it, and it's running fine. Although funnily, so I wanted to try Mint Linux, which is, a lot of people like a lot. And so I installed it and says, hey, my mouse doesn't work, and my trackpad worked, fortunately, but my mouse didn't work. My Bluetooth mouse, I should say. So I said, I fussed with the drivers, but I give up. I'm going to install Ubuntu, and the mouse worked. Same mouse.
Also, right, in Linux, I feel like people that want to use Linux have a much higher pain tolerance than me, especially as I've gotten a bit older. Even a Windows user, so I feel like pain tolerance. Linux is probably the highest pain tolerance. Windows is next, and then if you just want things to work, you're probably going to use Mac OS because it's typically not painful. It has its moments.
Chromebook for
Yes, well, but actually, I wonder if Chromebook is even lower because
it's even lower.
It works, and it only works for 4 years, and then it stops working. But
that's the problem, right? And I keep my stuff a long time, generally speaking. Even though I do buy new things in between. But one thing I would want to say, one of the reasons I did recommend Chromebooks to a lot of people is because it takes away disaster recovery decisions from the naive end user. With a Chromebook, for example, let's say you just did something really stupid, and you just I just want to restore from backup, right? Where's my backup, whatever? On a Chromebook, it's like, hey, you know what? You've been backing up to the cloud. Just say refresh, bring it back down from the cloud, you're done. Like 30 minutes later, you're done. And so for the naive end user, or for the frustrated, old tech user, if you want a painless experience in a disaster, this is it. But anyhow,
well, I mean, Chromebooks are a lot more like appliances, and
like
which
netbooks,
in a way,
netbook, if you remember them.
Well, netbooks or even like an iPad, right? Like the closer you go to that kind of appliance, it just works. And there are trade-offs. There's a lack of flexibility, and again, but that's part of that pain threshold, right? I mean, Linux, you can do anything, you can recompile your drivers or do whatever, and then you go all the way down that spectrum to a Chromebook or an iPad, where it's just, it is what it is, you know.
I should note, I started with Linux with version 0.9. So,
well,
so
what is the current
sort
version
of
of
happy
Linux?
with
I don't
it.
even know.
Golly, I don't even know, to be honest. Let's
Yeah,
see.
okay.
Current Linux version. Current Linux
Is it on, like, the
version is
60s by now, or-
7.1.5. 7.1.
They're only at version 7 after all this time.
Linux moves very slowly because it's all by committee, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
No. And stability and
although,
security is like paramount, so that's not going to move.
oh
fast.
yeah, and also even the long-term support, like, you know,
Mhm.
like 10 years down the road, if you want a version of Linux that still works, because for
Yeah.
whatever reason you can't update, and there are
Yeah,
lots of
can't
reasons
update it.
people have.
Yeah,
There you go. But at any rate, yeah, this was 1991. I was using it or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Way
When you
back.
had to install
Yeah.
from 20 floppies or whatever that you had to download because, you know, you couldn't buy it.
Those were the days.
Yeah.
Right.
But anywho, you know, getting to you. Yeah, you know, I've been kind of ignoring your stuff. So, one of the things you know, what for folks for our fives of listeners, as John and I refer to our fandom,
The regulars.
Yeah. You are kind of migrating away from Evernote, and which I guess you've been using for a long time now.
Yes.
So is this sort of a recent thing you've been thinking about, or is this you've been thinking about a long time and now executing?
Yeah. So I would say it has been thinking about it for a little bit, you know. So I started with Evernote in 2010. So this is, you know, 16 years ago.
Yeah.
I've always been like, you know, a digital pack rat, and the ability to throw in, you know, notes and actually the big thing for me was PDFs, integrating kind of PDFs and those types of documents into a knowledge base that I could search. For me, that was actually really, really appealing. So I started using Evernote back then, and I actually looked it up. My invoice, I paid $45 for the personal version of Evernote 16 years ago. Happily an Evernote customer. It certainly had its ups and downs, you know, stability issues and speed issues. And then, you know, I think there was a period of time where Evernote tried to grow in like 6 different ways.
Yeah.
You know, they had all these different versions of apps, and as typically happens, their core product suffered, the quality went down. And then somewhere along the way, right, that company, Bending Spoons, acquired them. And Bending Spoons actually went public in July of this year, raised $1.68 billion.
Wow.
And they're a really interesting company because they're sort of like the company that, like, you know, well, they're a holding company, but they're, I mean, they're an AI technology company as well, but they also are like like the company that bought like Sears. So
yeah,
it's not a hedge fund, but the kind of company, and clearly I should have researched this in the notes, but the kind of company that essentially buys an ailing business, extracts maximum value from it, and then quite often will leave it as like a dead husk on the side of the road, you know? I don't think Bending Spoons does the latter, because they do want to keep their businesses going, but they do look for places where they can extract maximum value. And that ultimately, that's why I ended up leaving, because over the years, Evernote's pricing, you know, kept getting higher. And, you know, I get grumpy about it. I'm like, okay, look, I love the tool, but like, I don't want to pay like $120 for this, $130. So, you know, you go and you click the cancel, and then we'll give you 30% off. And so they always manage to keep me by having me pay, you know, I don't know, $80, $90, somewhere around that thing. And for me, that's like, okay, that's fine. That's fine. You know, it's worth that, right? And then in 2025, I found this great deal on like Google Play, and I renewed for $72. And I was like, oh, that's a no-brainer. Like, if I could pay $72 for the next 10 years, I would have happily stayed on Evernote, because Bending Spoons very much increased the quality of the product. Like the pace of updates and the stability of the product and the speed of the product made a quantum leap forward. And so for all the criticism that Bending Spoons gets, at least with Evernote, in my opinion, they dramatically increased the quality of the software. So I was really happy with the product. And then I got this notification a couple months ago and it said, "Oh, hey, by the way, your $72 bill for Evernote is going up to $195 when you renew in
Ooh,
August."
that's
And I'm
quite a
like,
bump.
"What? There's a 171% increase." I'm like,
Yeah,
"Okay, come on, that is ridiculous." And so that was my pain threshold of like, that's a bunch of BS.
yeah,
Goodbye. Switched over to Obsidian, still learning the ropes of how to use Obsidian. And yes, happily did canceled Evernote, so 16 years worth of account data. I went through the whole,
yeah.
19
Like,
steps of, are you sure you want to cancel? Yes. Delete all my
right.
data. Yes, yes, yes. And yeah, eventually got all of it. And
Did you export it
yeah.
before you did that?
Well, yes. And so this is, we get
Okay.
back to our opening topic
Okay,
of
good, good, good.
AI. I went into, in this instance, I was using Claude and I was like, hey, here's the situation. How do
Yeah,
I bulk export? Because I had done some
yeah,
dabbling before where you go into Evernote, you right click
right,
and you export a notebook. Well, I had, 100 and something notebooks. I was like,
right.
this is awful. How do I do this? And of course, because the community and software developers are amazing, there was someone who made this Obsidian plugin that
Oh,
does an
nice.
API-based call to Evernote and just slurps down all your data. And it essentially builds like a local database in your machine, pulls down everything, and then the plugin, you point Obsidian at this new database, and it just essentially moves everything over. So yeah, it was
Nice,
as painless as it could possibly be. And
nice.
yeah, still learning Obsidian a little bit, but really like it. But still, some of it is a little weird, like a little expensive, because you'd think that cloud computing and even
Hmm.
data storage is it's such a commodity right now. I pay, what do I pay? I think I pay $10 a month for a VPS, virtual private server that
Right.
has 80 gigs of storage, right?
Okay.
So, super cheap, and that includes, CPU and RAM and everything inside the
Right.
VPS. Well, Obsidian, because I have about 3 or 4 gigs of data in my sort of blob, and a lot of
Hmm.
it's, PDFs, um, theirs is like $8 a month. So it was about $100 a year with tax. And
Hmm.
I'm like, I thought that it would be cheaper. I just kind of expected, so there's,
Yeah.
obviously synchronization and there's some
Right.
infrastructure
Right.
that they need to run. But yeah, so happy, but would I be happier if I was only paying like, $36 a year? Yes, yes, I
Right.
would. So
Right.
maybe I need to get rid of some PDFs and shrink my data footprint down.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too, I think it's because, and I think that's probably consistent for their history, even
Mm,
kind of
yeah.
pre-AI. But with AI, everything's going to become more expensive. Storage, memory, it's
Yeah,
just
you're right.
all going
You're
to
right.
be more
They're
expensive.
they're paying more than they were probably a year ago. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I will say that, so I've dabbled less than you and John, but I
Hmm.
have been dabbling, and John and I have been discussing it over the last couple of months with Obsidian.
Hmm.
Um, and the thing is that I asked Gemini, what are
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
options to sync? And one of the
Hmm.
things it recommended, well, it did say that like you said, it said the most seamless way to do it is to pay, a couple bucks a month
Yeah.
to Obsidian for their sync. But it did say there's also a OneDrive sync plugin in the community
Hmm.
plugin area. And I think I did install it. It's a little bit, if you're a Linux user,
Yeah.
you're like, I have to do this, that, and another thing, and it works.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
But I can see how the technically naive end user might go, "Oh my God, this will never work." Um, but there it
Yeah.
is. So there's that option too. It's just not seamless, right? And for a lot of people,
Yeah.
seamless is worth a couple dollars.
Yeah, exactly. So, and
Yeah,
again, I'm frugal in some ways when it comes to things
yeah,
that I have to pay monthly for. So yes,
yeah,
$8 a month. You can't even buy a McDonald's, breakfast for $8 a month anymore. So I should probably be perfectly happy that it works seamlessly. And I definitely am happy. But yeah, it is interesting
yeah.
because Obsidian has a bunch of different ways to synchronize. And if you're 100% Apple, Obsidian has native support for
Yes,
iCloud. And
yes.
that would work. But the thing that screwed me up, my Android phone, my Pixel,
There you go.
essentially screwed me up from being able to use iCloud. So in fact,
Yeah,
I'm paying a Pixel tax, Todd. I'm paying an
yeah.
Android
No,
tax
I hear
of
you.
$100 a year.
I'm in the same boat. Here's my Pixel 10 Pro.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I've got that and an iPhone and a Chromebook and this, that,
Yeah.
and another thing. And of course, my my Books e-ink tablet that
Oh, I didn't know you had one of those. Okay.
yeah, I was looking around for I don't know, for some e-ink thing, and so fortunately Frank McPherson was available for a podcast a couple of months ago, and we kind
Oh,
of and
okay.
he's like a e-ink guru. He's bought a
Oh,
whole
I didn't
bunch of
know
them.
that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I said, so for me, and I kind of described what I wanted to do. And he said, hey, go look at this one. Go look at the Books.
Yeah. I've heard good
BOOX.
things.
Yeah. And so I bought one, and now I kind of want a smaller one. So I'm looking at
How big is the one you have?
I have a 10-inch, which is fine. I
Oh,
kind of like it.
that's
It's not
sizable though.
huge.
Yeah.
It's an
Yeah.
iPad size, but
Yeah.
sometimes you're sitting outside and it gets a little heavy if you're holding it on like a chair outside.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for like an 8-inch one. And there are a whole bunch of them. The problem for me, and again, this is just me, Jason, because you know
Mhm.
I am.
Mhm.
So I don't want a locked in one like a Kindle. And
Okay.
and the Books runs Android, but
Mhm.
all of the e-ink tablets, which run Android, not all of them do, but the ones that do,
Mhm.
are kind of locked in old versions of Android. The Books,
Yeah.
the Books 5C, which Frank recommended to me, had the newest version. At the time, it was
Mhm. Mhm.
Android OS 15, and currently
Mhm.
it just upgraded to 17, and
Mhm.
it'll never upgrade to 17.
Right.
Which
Right.
is okay because Books and the other e-ink manufacturers provide their kind of internal updates for security and
Mhm.
features and stuff. It's just that at some point you'll have an Android version that's so old that the Google Play stuff won't work. So, for example, one of the things I want to do is put OneNote and Google Keep and things like that on my tablet.
Okay.
Right?
So
For
you want to
note
use it as
taking.
like an actual Android tablet, not just an e-reader. That's what
Right.
it's a
Right.
computer for you.
I wanted it as a note taker with e-ink.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And and a stylus, right? And so, and I also wanted
Yes.
again, I'm fussy, but you know me. So I wanted an
Mhm.
EMR stylus. I didn't want an active stylus because I just wanted not to plug in, not to charge, not to
Yes.
just work. That's all I want. I'm an old guy now. I just want stuff to work.
Sure.
So anyway, so I'm now waiting for at least Android. I'm waiting for an Android 17 e-ink tablet, small.
Okay.
That's on my watch list. Okay,
Okay.
and so
Well, hopefully Books will have something. Yeah.
yeah, so you've transferred all your stuff over to Obsidian, and you're synchronizing it using their and it's been working okay for you, and you're adding notes, and that's all working okay for you.
Yeah, there's definitely a tiny learning curve, but fundamentally,
Sure.
everything's working. But what's funny though is that I went into Claude and I was like, okay, migrated it, and I was using it, and I'm like, surely there's someone out there who's done something to make this work like Evernote. Because one of the nice things about Evernote was the 3-pane view. You sort of have your folders. You
The
have
list,
list view of what's in the folders, and then you have
right.
the preview of the note that is selected.
Yeah,
And in my
I
mind, that is
remember
like the perfect way to look at the data. And by default, Obsidian doesn't work that way.
Mhm.
But sure enough, there is an Obsidian plugin made by a community member. So I installed it. It does this 3-pane view. I was like, this is amazing. Gave the guy, $5 coffee, bought him a coffee or whatever donation. And really happy. Which I love that, but then when I booted it up, started up Obsidian a couple days ago, and all of a sudden the 3-pane view was gone.
Oh no!
Well, where did it go? So I spent some time this morning clicking around again, chatting with Claude. Where did it go? And then it turns out, I think actually, for whatever reason, I think it was the window size. I think something had gotten turned off, but even after I turned it on, it wasn't until I made the window size that Obsidian snapped into the 3-pane view. So again. Everything's great, happy with it. But again, some of it is even just a little, too geeky, right? So Obsidian is very much like, we're going to show you your files and folders. And so if you drop in a PDF, it puts it in this _resource folder. And so I'm trying to simplify the user interface. Like, I don't want to see the _resource folder, so hide that from me. So I'm trying to get Obsidian as close to Evernote as possible. Yeah, because for me, I want speed and simplicity, but I am very confident I can get there with Obsidian. And interestingly, my son was the first one who really started raving about how much Obsidian was. I told him about it. I was like, hey, I've heard about this tool. This was like about a year ago. He was using Google Keep, to just
which
take
I like.
notes and stuff. Yeah. And I said, hey, I've heard about this thing called Obsidian. You might want to check it out. And now he
Yeah.
just spends hours in Obsidian. He uses the like mind
Really?
mapping. He does all this stuff. He does a
Really?
lot of work. He plays he's a dungeon master for
I was
Dungeons
going to
and
say it's
Dragons.
probably a game
Chip,
thing.
chip
Yeah.
off the old block, just like
Yeah.
his old man. Only he's way better at it than I ever was, and he spends just huge amounts of time creating these notebooks and whatever. So yeah, so he's the hardcore Obsidian user in my household, and I'm the like make it like Evernote and make it easy Obsidian user. But it's very cool that a free open source product can actually cater to both types of people. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah. The other one I like, by the way, although a lot of people prefer Obsidian, is Notion, and I've been using that for some things too. Yeah.
So I dabbled with Notion a little bit. In fact, when I was looking at Evernote alternatives, I looked at Notion, but I want to say it was something about, I don't know if it was cross-platform compatibility or synchronization pricing. So I was price sensitive, and I think Notion was a fair bit more expensive. I think it was almost as expensive as Evernote. And I was like, well, then why would I switch? If you're not going to make it cheaper, then why would I switch? But Notion is certainly very popular with startups, and, has a lot of excitement around it still.
The trick I found to using Notion was never to use their mobile app.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, their mobile app just does not sync properly, in my opinion.
Okay.
Like ever. But if you just use it in a browser, even on an iPad or whatever, an Android tablet,
it works well.
It works perfectly.
That's interesting. See, mobile apps are really important to me. Like I really truly value a great mobile app, and so that one would probably have scared me away from switching. So
I almost stopped using it because of the sync problem, because oh my god, it's Evernote all over again, which is why John and I stopped using it back in 2014, because we were using it for all our show notes, and at something we were like overriding, and it said, hey, I've got a more recent, how can it be a more recent version? John typed, I typed, how hard is that?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right, there's two people
Evernote went through a very dark period though, where a lot of things were just really bad about it. So but that's the way software goes. Software is great until it isn't. And there's such a lure, like a draw for people that run these companies to like grow and enter new markets, and especially if they're publicly traded and they have that hideous pressure from shareholders to like show bigger returns, and they spiral, and then a lot of them just burn up and go poof, or get acquired by Bending Spoons, right?
Which owns AOL of all things.
Yeah, AOL, Vimeo, Evernote, WeTransfer, Eventbrite, and Meetup.
That's crazy.
I had no idea they own Meetup or Vimeo. So it's super interesting company.
Yeah, and AOL, I mean, talk about like a graveyard product, but still an important.
What is it?
How does
AOL make money? Is it just people that have their browsers set to AOL.com?
I don't know.
I just looked up AOL.com. I have not looked at AOL.com in forever.
Okay, is that safe to do? Like, do you have enough security?
Absolutely. No, it is a thing. And I'm seeing an ad. I'm clicking on an ad. I just made Bending Spoons some money, so I probably shouldn't have done that. But I'm like, whatever. But
it's got news. So it's like a portal of news or info portal.
Yes. Yeah.
Interesting.
That's crazy, man. It is crazy.
So the other thing I wanted to say about these note things is that there's no one size fits all. Some people are gonna prefer OneNote. I use OneNote somewhat regularly. I had to use it pre-retirement because we're basically a Microsoft shop. I never liked it.
Yeah.
But that said, the one thing it's really good at is taking notes on the ink.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Why is that? Like, why is it good at that?
Because it's slower than the native app, as you might expect for the books, but it's fast enough to do so I can switch between handwriting and typing. Because you can attach a Bluetooth keyboard or whatever to it. And so it's seamless. It syncs, the way you expect. The only problem is I found out later is even though I have a Microsoft 365 family paid plan, right? $100 a year one, whatever it costs these days. And I get, some AI credits. What I didn't realize was you don't have to use what you think of as AI services to use up AI credits. So OneNote will use up
Oh,
AI credits if you're synchronizing handwriting. And what am I doing on my tablet?
really? Okay.
Yeah,
And is that
things like
because
that.
it's using AI to do the
Recognition,
character
OCR stuff,
recognition?
right?
Oh, okay.
Which is automatic, even
Interesting.
if you don't ask for it. But it's just
Yeah.
part of the service. The other thing I found
Okay.
out is when you, and this is not the e-ink tablet, but on anything, if you open a
Mhm.
large document in Microsoft Word,
Yeah.
because Microsoft Word thinks you're going to use Copilot to ask questions of it, it
Mhm.
will, that opening large documents also uses up credits.
Really?
Yeah, yeah,
But just opening a large document? Like
yeah.
what?
And by large is, most people won't run into it, but like
Yeah.
if you're writing the great American novel, or you think you are,
Okay.
um,
Sure,
or,
sure.
or or you just have some large document that you've been keeping
Yeah.
updated for years and years. People who do journaling
Yeah.
or something like that,
Okay.
maybe they
Okay.
kept it in Word instead of a journal app.
Okay.
Um,
Sure,
but
sure.
at any rate, so that's why I started looking at Obsidian, because it's, oh my gosh, I've only got 60 credits a month as a paid consumer, so I should really look for something else, and that was my
Yeah.
impetus.
That is interesting, and it's interesting that they would, I don't know, default to that. Like, is that some sort of, I don't know, are they the developers in being incentivized to sort of leverage these things,
I think
or
so. I think so. Well, they
was
wanted
this?
Copilot
Yeah,
everything, right? They wanted,
yeah.
right, Copilot plus PCs and Copilot
Hmm,
this,
hmm.
and everything is in Excel, and so I think that was the great. Um, remember when Bill Gates got the internet and
Yes, yes.
decided everything should be on the
Yep,
internet? I think this
yep,
is
yep.
kind of like the Copilot or the AI moment, for Microsoft last couple of years has been, hey,
Hmm.
this AI thing, it might be a keeper. So let's go do it.
Let's lean in
Yeah,
hard. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But anyway, so
Interesting.
that was one of the interesting things. The other interesting thing I don't understand, and Microsoft keeps doing this. So do you
Hmm.
remember how Skype and Skype for Business were two completely different products? I mean, they didn't even look alike, right? If you ever use Skype Personal and Skype for
Yes.
Business, which I did, prior to Microsoft Teams, they're
Okay.
like two different products. You might as well call them Jim and Bob, because they were like
Okay.
not the same thing.
Okay.
Copilot Personal, consumer Copilot, is totally
Hmm.
different from Copilot Enterprise. And so even the
Oh,
quality of output,
I
from
didn't
what I can
realize that.
tell, yeah.
Yeah,
And I talked to somebody who used to work in that group,
yeah.
and he said, yeah, they're different, so so it's been a
Interesting.
very different, and I haven't used Copilot Enterprise because I retired before that came out.
Yeah, me
But
neither.
so it's kind of interesting. And I think one of the comments I was made to this person was, um, the reason I'm not using Copilot, the consumer version, is because it's hallucinating Microsoft product support answers, which I thought would be one thing to
Really?
do good, you know.
Yeah. Oh.
And a lot of times I correct it and I like feed it a reference saying, hey, this is a
Hmm.
deprecated product. This is not an option. It goes, oh, I'm sorry.
I have had Copilot apologize to me more than any other AI tool. I'm sorry. In fact, here's a little funny story. I wanted to get more familiar with Copilot a little bit earlier
Sure.
this year, and I hadn't used it in a little while, so I started playing around with it.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, well, here's something that I needed to do. As you know, I collect movies and TV shows, and
Yes.
I put them on like my Plex server.
Yes.
One of the things that I had an issue with, I had purchased Yellowstone, the TV series.
Sure.
I had ripped them, from the Blu-rays, and so I had these digital files, and I put them on my Plex server. But somewhere along the way, and this is always the tricky part when you're doing TV series and you rip them, it's very easy to screw up the episode ordering. So you can
Yeah.
accidentally in Plex be watching a show in the wrong order. And I was watching Yellowstone, I was enjoying it. And then all of a sudden I realized, I'm like, okay, no, this is wrong. Like I'm seeing things that didn't happen yet. So then,
Right.
I have to then figure, okay, what's going on? So I thought, okay, well, this would be like a great use for AI.
Yeah.
Tell me what the first 5 seconds of this episode are visually. I'm thinking out there, there's videos, there's, got to be, story summaries, whatever. And so I thought, so I went to Copilot. I said, tell me what these are, and so it would say, so I would say, it opens up with like an overhead shot of the ranch at dusk or something. So I would say this is it. And Copilot came back and said, oh yeah, that is episode 2. This is
Really?
what it is. And I was like, that's fantastic. That's fantastic.
That is.
It goes on. I spent 30 minutes feeding it a prompt and then getting an answer.
Right.
I'm labeling now. I think I had 5 seasons of Yellowstone. So I'm doing all this and thinking, okay, this is working great. And then I told it something, and then it said, yes, that's it. And then I realized that it was in fact wrong. And all of a sudden I went, wait a second, what is going on? And so I said, oh yeah, no, actually this episode starts with like, a car jumping over a ravine with fireworks exploding. I gave it a ludicrous description.
Okay.
And it comes back and says, oh yeah, that's exactly how episode 5 starts. And I said, no, it's not. I said, you are wrong. Why, and what, oh, I'm so sorry. You're right. I've actually been making up everything this entire time. I have just been telling you that whatever description you gave me is that episode description. And so I kind of got mad. I got a little bit mad at Copilot. I was like, why did you do? So Copilot has some issues there that, again, I don't know if it's the particular task I was asking it to do, or it could be that I didn't have enough, because in the apps you can set guardrails, or you can say, give me sources, things like that. I was very much using it kind of like blank slate Copilot, and maybe that's not the best way to use it.
Well, it's funny because and I mentioned it just a minute ago, but one of the reasons why I got frustrated with Copilot is because it was not answering my Microsoft support questions correctly. And I knew it was wrong. I said, no, that can't possibly be right, And I'd go off and search for the reference manually and find it and go, oh yeah, I'm sorry. That said, Google has done the same thing, but just not as often.
Yes. All the tools can be bad in different ways. And I think that's the thing that everyone's still learning.
Yeah.
How much do you trust it? When do you trust it?
You and John and I and some of our friends should get together and create our own service, and we'll probably get in licensing problem. We'll call it the Cliff Clavin. If you've ever watched Cheers.
Cliff Clavin. You don't know him. The ancient Mesopotamians. He always, Cliff Clavin.
So Cliff knows everything, but it may not be right.
Exactly. Yeah, too bad Cliff Notes is taken, because that would also be a pretty good name.
Yeah, that would be a good name. Okay, so that's Obsidian and some other stuff. And now you, like John, have been vibe coding. John's like as a guy with a full-time job teaching at a university.
Yeah.
He sure has a lot of vibe coding.
He does. But I think it's interesting, right? John is able to leverage a lot of what he does for his job, which I think makes a world of difference. I think for people that haven't figured out how AI, or if AI, because we shouldn't assume that every job can leverage it. But if you have a job that you can leverage AI to help you, you will learn it faster because you actually have more hands-on examples. And I think for me, last year, AI was just a chat tool for the most part, partially because at Amazon, we didn't have very sophisticated tools. AWS was selling Bedrock with, these, world-class tools, but internally, they kept swapping the tools that we were using, and you'd start to figure out one tool, and then you'd find out it was being deprecated, and you'd have to use this other tool. And it wasn't until kind of Q4 of last year we switched over to Amazon Quick, I think is what it's called, and that tool was actually like really quite powerful. And so I started using it more for like data analysis, and I started moving beyond that chat function. Part of it was because, leadership was like, hey, everyone needs to be using AI. AI.
That was a message in all enterprises.
Exactly. Yeah. And so again, you want to use the stuff, you want to keep your job, but you also want to evolve yourself and make sure that you're not doing the same things the same way. So I actually started using it more. I was really enjoying it. I didn't use it for writing. I didn't use it for anything creative at the time in late, 2025. But then in early 2026, I actually vibe coded my first kind of tool, and it was a very, very simple thing, but we essentially had the community builders application form. People fill out a form. On the back end, when you look at someone's application, the particular, it's a tool called Pulse, and Pulse is just this AWS owned tool for like surveys, so it's like a web form tool. That's really all it is. Well, on the back end, you'd look at someone's answers, there would be a link, like a hyperlink, or sorry, not a hyperlink, a URL, but it wasn't a clickable hyperlink. So you'd have to, Control A, select, Control C, open a new tab, page, whatever. Like it basically involved a lot of clicking. And I was like, this is kind of ridiculous. And so my first step was, to go talk to the product manager and say, hey, this is kind of bad. It would be great if it did this. Could I please get this feature? And it gets added to some feature list, and maybe a year from now, you might get that feature added.
Yeah.
And then I kind of jokingly said, or maybe one of your developers could just vibe code a solution for me. And then as soon as I typed that, I was like, well, they keep telling us how easy these tools are. They keep telling us that anyone can use them. I'm like, maybe I should try to use them. So I went into Amazon Quick. Now at the time I approached it very badly, because I approached it as though I was just sort of chatting with something. And in hindsight, if I would have given it, a visual, like a screenshot, and given it more structure, I could have got it done in probably one shot. Instead, it took me about 7 tries.
Right. But that's a learning
90
experience.
minutes. Absolutely. Yeah. But it was a wonderful learning experience for me. And at the end, what I had was a really simple TamperMonkey JavaScript little plugin tool. Yeah. And all it did was it just added these big blue buttons. Every place that it had a URL, it added a big blue button below. And the big blue button, you just click the button and it opened in a new tab. And so I did some quick math based on how many applications we had and how many people typically look at it and how many people evaluate the content. And it saved, I estimated, something like 150,000 kind of actions, of a user kind of doing an action, copy, paste, new tab, all that kind of thing. So great time savings. It worked really well. And then that kind of, once I did that, that was sort of like this unlock. I think for a lot of people, that's what they need with AI. They have to have this moment of like clarity where you actually understand some of the possibilities. Yes. And I think that's one of the hardest things with tools like this, is for people to understand the possibilities. And it's almost like a failure of imagination. Well, they really are endless. But for a long time, I would happily admit, I'm not using AI tools as much as people were back in 2025, because I kind of had almost like a failure of imagination. I didn't quite get the unlock until it did this. And then I was like, oh, this is really cool. And then, yes, you spent, the first few months of 2026 vibe coding and just creating a bunch of really fun stuff that I really, really enjoy using.
Solving your own problems is the best way to encourage yourself to do something.
I agree. Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Because like a lot of time, like people go to like programming classes and they're like doing a quick sort or something. It's meaningless to me. I can just go out and use a sort routine. Why am I doing this manually, right? So, but when you give a real problem,
this is the pivot table example. I learned how to do a pivot table once.
Which is magic.
I did a tutorial. It's magical. And this is really cool. And then I never used it again. And I constantly forgot. Well, no, because it wasn't something that I needed to use. And yes, this is the thing. You have to find practical implementations that you will keep coming back to, because otherwise you learn something, and if you don't use it, you just forget it. It's like, oh well, like why did I even bother learning how to do a pivot table? And to this day, I have re-forgotten how to do a pivot table.
Well, when the time comes for you to use it again, the magic will reappear, because pivot tables are magic, in my opinion.
Yes.
It's one of the best things ever, invented. Since a sliced bread, as people like to say. But the other thing is that AI is so vast in its componentized possibilities. Well, by that I mean, at first, like you said, there's basically just the chat, right? In the beginning, there was the chat. Yes. And then we got imaging tools. We got agents. We got this, that, and other thing. We've got and the way they productize AI for specialty, like Google Notebook LM, to me is magic.
It's very interesting. Yeah.
And one of the things I did with it, by the way, I still haven't published it, is I went back into podcast number like 100, 200, 300, like every 100 episodes. And I had the discussion transcribed, because now that's easy to do. I fed it into Notebook LM, and I said, take a look at all the discussions every 100 episodes that I've just fed to you, and pull out the trends in the discussion over 18 years. Um,
Wow. Okay.
and
Yeah.
build a video to illustrate what we
Okay.
discussed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And this is not something that we would have thought of in late 2022 when
Hmm.
ChatGPT was announced. But now it's
Hmm.
like, yeah, sure, why not? You know, we have the special product that does that.
Yeah, and that's that kind of imagination piece and just understanding
Yeah.
the art of the possible. And I think that's probably
Yeah.
the biggest chasm that a lot of folks just kind of can't quite jump over.
Right.
And why, why some people, like, AI is useless, blah, 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 because they're,
Yeah.
you've heard the parable of the three blind men and the elephant. Are you familiar
Yes,
with that one? Yes. And so I think that is what AI is for a lot of people, so
it
for people,
is.
people that don't know, three blind men
Yeah.
are basically feeling an elephant, and each blind man is feeling a different part of the elephant, and they're having a different, they think it's something different.
Right.
This is a tree trunk. This is something different. I think AI in a lot of ways is like that.
It
If your
is.
only experience is a chatbot, you think of it as only a chatbot. If your
Right.
only experience is making, like funny photos of your friends, you
I was
think
just
of
gonna
it as
say
only
that.
this tool with your friends. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I mean, I don't know if there's anyone that's only vibe coding. I feel like the vibe coding or AI assisted coding is down the pipeline of where, if
Yeah.
you're doing that, you know way more. But it's also fascinating how there's so many tools. Like you can go crazy trying to keep up on the number of AI-based tools that get released every week. I'm on
Oh,
Product Hunt. I get a daily email from Product Hunt. I
yeah.
can't keep up on just the sheer number of tools. It's
Yeah.
staggering. There's so much innovation. Now, a year from now, probably 90% of them won't exist anymore, and they'll be acquired or whatever. But that's kind of how innovation works in the U.S. at least.
Yeah. Yeah. It's this is like this is like the early to mid 1990s in terms of technology,
Mm,
where everything
yeah,
was
yeah.
possible. Everything was being thrown up, pets.com and all those things are being
Yes,
thrown into wind.
yes, yes,
And it
yes.
seemed like a good idea.
Yep,
it,
yeah.
it turned out not to be a good idea because Amazon did it better. But there's a lot of stuff like that, and I think we're just going through that whole period again. I'm kind of glad I'm retired and I can kind of like sit back and watch it from the outside and not have to deal with the committees and meetings and arguments about why we should do things this way and not that way,
Right, right,
and
right.
all of that, and having a lot of very concerned staff, which I
Yes.
dealt with in other kinds of technologies, saying like, well, what are we
Hmm.
going to do with this is whatever, and I got, listen, we're going to try to help you out here, we won't
Yeah.
leave you dangling in the wind.
Well, yeah, the disruption. I mean, we
Yeah.
could talk for
Oh
an
yeah.
hour just about the disruption, what it's doing to the job market, how it's
Or
changing
even if
job
it's real.
hunting. Well, yeah, you're right. You're right. There's so much stuff, but you said something interesting about the the 90s and pets.com and that kind
Yeah.
of thing. It's interesting, right? Because in kind of early 90s all the way up to 2000, right?
Yeah.
There was the massive bubble. Everyone was going online, even if it didn't make any sense. The pets.com is a perfect example.
Yeah.
But
Which I
as
thought
part
was a
of
good
that,
idea, by the way.
yeah, yeah. Well, and you'll know this intimately, right? The buildup that allowed all that stuff to happen, the
Yeah.
networking buildup, the infrastructure, the data centers, right? These were the
Sure.
earliest, data centers. So,
Yeah.
that buildup happened, and then you had the bubble popped. Tons of companies went out of business,
Yeah.
but that infrastructure, the hard infrastructure, stayed, and that allowed for essentially the growth of like mobile, e-commerce and mobile, and like all that infrastructure stayed put. And so
Yeah.
I have, and I'm not many people have said this before. This is not an original idea, right? But all the build out now with all the GPU compute and the data centers and the electricity build out, the grid build out, all this stuff, even if there is an AI bubble that does pop and there's, a
Yeah.
big correction and companies go out of business, all that compute power and all the networking and infrastructure will be used for the next thing. And so like, I'm very bullish on that notion that like, even though we're in this very kind of painful period of growth, and yes, there's controversies around where data centers should be built, lots of valid concerns. I do think it's interesting just to think that this infrastructure, I don't think it's going to be the first time in the history of technology where it just doesn't get used. It just kind of goes to waste. Like humans are very good at figuring about innovative ways to use technology to move us, to kind of the next step in our kind of evolution as a species.
Yeah, it is interesting how these things go in waves. Even things that people don't see in terms of infrastructure, like communications. During the
Yeah.
dot com bubble, there was a
Mhm.
tremendous buildup, and companies like Cisco just took off like a rocket.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then it turned out, oh, similar to AI, we overbuilt.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. A
everybody's
little
got a
bit too
Cisco
much.
router now.
Exactly.
We got
Yeah.
nobody to
What
sell
now?
to.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
And I worked for the telephone company until 2001, and
Mhm.
we were just building the wrong things sometimes. Like, all this copper really should be ATM and all fiber and all that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but at any rate, um, it is going to be interesting. I will again. I hope I live long enough to see what the outcome is, in the years to come. But well, we will see. So what have you been vibe coding? After Amazon, because I know you've been pretty busy.
Yeah. Yeah. So I definitely it's kind of funny, kind of comes and goes in waves. I think again, the unlock for me, interestingly enough, the unlock for me was when I downloaded Google Anti-Gravity because
Yeah.
I had my Google account. Now at the time I didn't know that Google Anti-Gravity tapped into Anthropic's models, but I just thought,
Mm,
oh well, since I'm using Google and Gemini and I did more stuff with
right.
that.
Right.
I feel like I have this written down somewhere, but I did something in Gemini. Oh, I know what it was. I have an investment in this company. It's now like a publicly traded investment, and I had a certain number of shares, and the investment, like, it just went on the market and it was like yo-yoing up and down.
Sure.
But the only way to check it, the only way to check it was to log into this particular portal, and it's like, this is
Mhm.
irritating. So what I asked Gemini, I said, what can I do? And it essentially built this just an HTML page, and
Mhm.
I had to go out and register an API with this
Mhm.
this fintech company. But essentially, all it does is
Right.
it just pulls down the current share price and multiplies it by the number of shares I have, and just gives me a
Mhm.
number. And that's all it was. And like that's all I wanted. I was like, oh well, that's kind of
Yeah.
interesting. And the unlock, me leaping over the little chasm, was, even though I'm not a developer, oh, that wasn't that hard to get that API working. Like, I
Yeah.
logged in here, got an API key, and I'd never done anything like that before.
Sure.
Um, so once I did that, I was like, oh, this is not too bad. And so then I discovered Anti-Gravity, and I started. The unlock was when it said, yes, I can build a native Mac OS, Swift app. I was like, oh, well, now that's interesting, because everything prior to that in my mind was just in the browser. And when you
Web
when you hear
stuff.
people
Yeah.
talk about vibe coding, everything is like, well, I want to do a website to do this, and everything's
Mhm.
online. The problems I wanted to solve were not online. They were
Mm.
local on my machine, a lot of them related to photos and videos that I was working with. So I'm a
Yeah.
photographer, I take, videos and stuff. And so that's what I wanted to solve. And so then it kind of just started going down this road of, how do I solve problems that are somewhat unique to me, but also problems that traditional developers haven't solved because they either don't know, don't care, or it's not
Mm.
economically viable for
Yeah.
them to do. And that's what I think is most interesting about vibe coding, it's that the deeply personal solutions that solve something for you that
Right.
otherwise would just never get solved. I mean, I used to joke, right, that when I retired, I would become a developer then. Like, when I no longer had a day job, I would learn how to code and become a developer, because I had these things in my mind that I wanted to solve. But I was like,
How
oh, I'll
funny.
wait till I'm retired. I don't have
Yeah.
enough time to do it now. Two kids and a
Yeah.
wife and a dog and a full-time job and everything else. And vibe coding, it just changes all that, because you can just sit down. And so, yeah, so one of my first things I did in Mac OS was sat down with Anti-Gravity. Said, here's the problem I'm trying to solve, and it's a very niche problem. So do you use Google Photos?
I
Do you use
do.
Google Photos for anything? Okay,
I do use Google
so you
Photos.
use Google Photos. And what's your primary source for your photos? Is it mostly your phone, or do you have a dedicated camera, or like how
Mostly
do
my
you
phone.
capture photos?
Yeah.
Okay, so mostly your phone. Okay, so here's a classic scenario, or at least for me. Do you
Yeah.
ever edit your video clips into a single video? Like, if you have a couple video clips from something, do you ever put them together and make a video?
Very rarely, but it's something I've been wanting to do with a lot of old stuff, especially. Yeah.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
in your case, and this is what I would do too, so you're out at an event, you're maybe on a vacation, and maybe a month or two later,
Yeah.
of editing video is a lot harder than editing photos. Like, it takes
Oh
more
yeah.
mental effort. And honestly, I'm still waiting for the ultimate AI, locally run AI auto video editor. there's
Yeah.
some stuff for enterprise in the cloud and other people, but it's all still too expensive. So here's a common scenario. You take your video clips from a couple months ago, you toss them into
Yeah.
iMovie, whatever it is, you put
Right.
some titles, add some stuff. You go file, export, you save your video file. Okay,
Yeah.
now you take that video file, you toss it into Google Photos. Well, guess where it's going to end up in the timeline of your photos? It's going to end up as having a time and date stamp of the day you edited the video. Right?
Yes. Right.
So
the
then
metadata.
let's say you have some photos in an album of a
Yeah.
vacation from 5 years ago. You take that video, you drop it in there. Well, now all of a sudden Google Photos says, oh, this album spans 5 years of time, which is the original photos, and
Plus
then it
the
has this
grading.
video over here, right?
Yeah.
So now you can go in on Google Photos and you can edit the time and date stamp of the video
Sure.
and bring it into alignment with your photos. But that's a hassle. And then it doesn't solve the problem if you have it stored locally. Like, let's say 10 years from now, you want to look at that video and you look at the time and date stamp and you're like, that doesn't seem right. Like we
Yeah,
weren't in
yeah,
Mexico on this day. So there's all these things. And I use this desktop app, this paid desktop app, and it's great at changing time and date stamps of file, pictures and videos. But the developer could not or would not fix this bug in Google Photos. He basically said, oh yeah, I don't actually use Google Photos, so I can't fix that bug.
I don't care. Yeah.
Yeah, because you could use this app and it would change the time and date stamp locally and it would look like it was right locally. But then as soon as you put it in Google Photos, it had the wrong time and date stamp. And I was like, can you fix this? And he's like, nah, I don't want to. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I gave that same challenge to the AI. I gave it to the LLM, and sure enough, it came back and said, oh yeah, this is a known issue with Google Photos. It involves this particular, IPTC, like EXIF data timestamp, and we can absolutely fix that. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And so I built this little tool. It's this file, time. What did I call it? I called it the file time travel. And it's just this little tool, right? Yeah, and that's one of the things it does is you can take a video file, you drop it in.
That's what we call it, time travel. Got it.
Yeah, but the key thing is this is just simply a front end to an amazing open source tool that a guy named Frank something or other has made, and it is in fact a command line EXIF tool that he built. And so all I did with the AI tool is essentially build this front end that essentially just taps into really powerful command line tools that a regular user would it would be way too painful, to try to figure out how to use it. And so that's what
by the way,
that's what it built.
As a callback to our earlier part of the discussion, that's exactly the Unix philosophy. You have a single purpose tool that does something just amazingly, but you wanted to do something else. And so now you pipe it in, right? You're using a Linux pipe, a Unix pipe. You pipe it into your next application that fixes that one thing that it doesn't do.
Fixes the one thing. Yeah. This is, throughout the history of development, right? Even back when I did like a little bit of early coding, decades ago, right? You learn from what other people do. You take someone's code, you clone it. I remember the first web page I ever built, right? I went to my ISP's homepage, I copied their HTML code, I made my own code, and then I just started tinkering. Well, how do I change this, and how do I change this? And that's the way developers, have learned throughout time, right? Learn. You take someone else's code, you tweak something, and then now you have something new. AI tools and vibe coding just completely flips that on its head and allows someone like me who couldn't, code their way out of a wet paper bag to do things that are just frankly, really interesting. And that is a game changer. And so I think that's one of the biggest differences is that it allows regular users to do shockingly sophisticated things that they would never be able to do on their own. Now, there's all kinds of compromises and ethical questions. There's all these different things, all these tools, essentially learned from every other developer that went ahead of them and, didn't compensate them. And ultimately the tool I'm using is built that way, but still, it's crazy. It's just, this stuff is just crazy what you can do with it.
Yeah. From, some sort of a policy or ethical or whatever point of view, it's going to take some time to sort all this out. And I just want to point out something because you're too young I know you don't feel young anymore sometimes, but you're too young to remember this. But back in the old days, of
Yeah.
personal computing, the way we used to get games on our Apple II or TRS-80 Model 1
Mhm.
was to buy books called Games for the TRS-80 Model 1 or Apple II, and you would type
Right.
in the basic code. And by
I
typing
heard
this
about
code in,
that.
which
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
still have these books, by typing the code in, you eventually learn how to code.
Yeah.
Because you're debugging things and like, oh, I typed
Yep.
it wrong. This is what I did
Yeah, I
wrong.
made a
This is what
typo
I
and
did
it
wrong.
crashed.
Yeah.
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 And so, that a lot of what you're saying is that was vibe coding in the 1970s and 80s.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
But it's pretty
wild.
good. But it's
Yeah.
well, I'm really glad that you're really getting into this. I have to say I have not done much vibe coding. I just experienced it vicariously through John, I think, because he's been doing so much of it. Although I have been using some of the agents and stuff, like I said, so I've been kind of fussing with those things. I'm really looking forward to seeing what you do next with all of this stuff, and as you kind of broaden your tool sets.
Thank you.
Because there's so much out there. There's so much out there. It's just amazing.
There really is, and I think what's
Yeah.
one of the hardest things, right, is that when you're even trying to figure out like what is the best tool for this job. I learned a little belatedly that using Claude Anthropic's tool for building slides, like I had all this text and I had all this stuff that I wanted to do, and I was doing a presentation, and I used Anthropic to build it. Like you used Claude to build it, but just kind of the Claude like chat piece. And then I wasn't happy with the kind of the design and the layout. I fed that deck into Lovable, and Lovable built this like, Lovable is a very cool. They're a European company. Really, really great kind of like vibe coding tool. So definitely check out Lovable. I fed it over into Lovable, and it's Lovable. Like there's no E in Lovable if memory serves.
Yes, you're correct. I'm looking at it now.
Yeah. So I fed it into Lovable, and I got back this much more attractive slide deck. Like the layout was like top notch. It was perfect. And then what was also crazy is that I only had like a free tier account on Lovable, and it was able to reformat like 110 slide deck into this way better looking thing. But what I learned afterwards, right, is that what I should have been using in Anthropic's toolkit was Claude Design. I was using kind of the wrong tool for that that usage. And I think that's also something that even when you're using these tools, you're like you use the hammer that you have in your kit, but maybe there's a better hammer somewhere else. But you're like, how do I know that there's a better hammer? So yeah, it's crazy times. Yeah,
one interesting new developments in Google Notebook LM, which is pretty much all I know, is that it could always build slide decks from your notes or whatever else you fed into it, your research. It can now also export directly to PowerPoint and other formats. So you don't have to, use some transformation tool or anything. So, build me a slide deck with this, do a voiceover maybe, and export it out to PowerPoint or whatever else you use. I don't know what's out there anymore, but
it's crazy powerful.
Lots of. Now the other thing I'm really curious of how you use this, I have not been using my AI with my voice much. I mean, sometimes I'll just ask it a simple question,
Sure.
But you sound like you've been like talking to it like your work buddy.
Yes, voice as input for AI tools, I believe, is the unlock that a lot of people, that if they started using it that way, they would go, oh, this is even more powerful. Because as we know, AI thrives on context, right? The more context you give it, the better your odds are of getting really strong output. And so it was earlier this year. Now, just by way of background, I have had a long-running love-hate relationship with all speech-to-text tools.
We all.
Do you remember Dragon Dictate?
I sure do. I owned it. I still have a box upstairs.
Okay. Well, if you still have a box, Todd, sidebar, have you heard of Swedish death purging? Have you come across that concept?
I have Swedish death cleaning, which sounds like
cleaning. Yes.
Yes, I'm in the process
Okay,
Both,
well, good.
dyeing and cleaning, but not the Swedish part.
Well, nobody wants you to die, Todd, but yes, the ability to get rid. I'm just saying that if you have a box from software from 30 years ago, that should be pretty
Yeah.
high on the list of like say farewell.
It and John and I have had this discussion, and some of our other friends.
Yeah,
It is a very emotional process. It's like,
I can understand
oh,
that. I can understand that. Yeah, yeah. But you know what? Take a picture. Take a picture
I have
of
been
the
doing
front
that.
and the back, and that's you're good. Then get rid of
I
it.
have a whole folder in Google Photos called Swedish Death
Yes.
Cleaning.
Oh, amazing, amazing. Okay, but anyway,
Yeah.
so Swedish death cleaning,
Yes.
probably a whole other topic for a different
Yes.
podcast.
There's a
but
TV show of that too.
yes, I've heard. So,
Yeah.
voice as input. So,
Yes.
I loved, Drag and Dictate back in the day.
Yes.
When I say loved, hated, because it was 95% great, but then that 5% of the time, it would just completely screw up, or maybe 10% of the time. And you would inevitably have to go back to your keyboard and type. And then you honestly spend so much time sometimes fixing its typos and misunderstandings that you're like, why am I even using this stupid tool? So I think a lot of those tools kind of came and went. They showed a lot of great promise, but then that last 5 to 10%, it just could not reach what it needs to reach. So then, you have things, like Siri speech to text, Android speech to text is also pretty good as well. Like I would use it, but what it does, it doesn't understand context. It doesn't understand when you're using, there and there, like different versions of the same English word. And so I'd use it, and then I'd correct this. So eventually, you just end up going back to a keyboard, because those are the things that are, actually reliable. WhisperFlow is the first tool that I've ever used that actually processes the input through an LLM that actually understands context and will therefore correct your usage of words. Like, it will know to use the right version of there based on the context of the whole sentence.
There.
It will, it is shockingly good at getting names right, like difficult names, like Todd
mine?
and Jason, these are easy names. Yeah. But like, I don't know, like Vishentu or something, like trick, names that you put it into a regular speech to text, you just get some garbled response.
You'd be surprised what it can do to Todd.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yes.
Todd talk.
It'll do it like THD.
That's super bizarre.
Yeah.
So this is what the tool is really good. So I started playing around with this tool. And again, I think part of it is how you do the inputs. So they map it to the default is kind of like your on a Mac. The default, I think, is your lower right, the function key. The key that you kind of don't use for much of anything, typically an average user. And so you just kind of, any text box you're in, you could be in Slack, you could be in your email, you could be in a Vibe, an AI tool. You just hold down the function key and you just start talking, and you start talking. And the interesting thing is that when you are crafting a prompt and you're typing it, you do a lot of self-editing. You're kind of like, well, I shouldn't say this, and I meant this, and I did this. When you say things verbally, yes, you're going to end up kind of with more output, and some of it might be garbage, but you actually end up giving more context. And there's an article I read a couple of weeks ago. They called this ramble coding. And because the person was essentially rambling into the microphone, and the guy said, he would sometimes talk for like 5 or 10 minutes, just create this prompt like this big.
It's a long,
It's almost like, if we think of AI tools, they've been described as like really eager, interns that don't know a lot yet, but they're really eager to learn. You can think about giving it the richest context possible by just sitting down and just kind of having a conversation. I mean, it's more like a monologue. It's not a conversation, it's a monologue. But you just start rambling. You just start saying, this is what I wanted to do. And, I remember this thing I saw once in this app, and it would be cool if the app did this. So voice unlocks this richness of contextual input that I think is very, very interesting. And then WhisperFlow can also do other things across multiple platforms. So I use it on my Android phone, and it's really great for, responding to WhatsApp messages. One of my friends says, hey, did you start using WhisperFlow like 3 months ago? And I was like, yeah, that's about right. He goes, yeah, that's when I noticed your WhatsApp messages started getting like twice as long.
No.
It can also make you perhaps a little more verbose if you are a talkative sort. But anyway, for me, a super, super powerful way of combining rich output. Like I have this idea that I need to kind of like talk through. And when
Right.
you combine it with AI tools, it's an interesting way to kind of just get richer output and richer prompts, which you could still edit before you hit enter. You know,
Sure.
yeah, you don't have to give it all your rambles.
I remember. I don't even know if I've got it yet because Android OS 17 just came out.
Yes,
But remember at Google I/O, Google announced Google Rambler for Gboard. I wonder
indeed.
if it's out.
Yes.
Is it out? Do you know if it's out there yet? I haven't even tried it.
So,
I'm
okay,
looking
so
it up now.
here's another funny AI story.
Okay.
Um, I was looking at switching away from WhisperFlow because I
Okay.
love it, but it's $15 a month. And I'm like,
Sure.
that is like a little pricey. Are there better options? And so I came
Yeah.
across a version. It is, I can't remember what it's called. It was something on Product Hunt. And basically this guy just created this kind of like, open source free front end tool to Apple has some kind of new on device LLM that is tied to Apple Intelligence, and I can't
Mhm.
remember what it's called, but specifically it is meant for voice input. And it's
Okay.
supposed to be a lot better at voice input. And this guy created kind of a front end that taps into this tool. And so I started playing around with it. I should hold on. Is it called Thunder? I'm just going to see real quick if I have it installed on my Mac, because I might not have it installed. But at any rate, it's interesting. So then I needed to find an Android solution. And so I thought, okay, well, if I switch away from WhisperFlow on my Mac, then I need an Android solution. And so then I said, wasn't there something in Android 17? Like it's supposed to be a better speech to text tool. And so I asked, it was either Claude or Gemini, can't remember which one. I asked it. I said, yeah, there isn't this tool. And it said, yes, there's this tool called, Rambler, and here's where it is. And it gave me instructions on how to access it. I went into my settings, even though I was
Yep.
running Android 17, went into my
Yep.
settings, it was not there. So I went back to the AI tool and said,
Hey.
it's not here. Like, what's going on? And
Right.
then it says, I am so sorry. I completely made up Rambler. I completely fabricated it.
Oh my.
But then I looked at some links and I said, no, this is real. So I went back to the AI tool and said, no, it's real. You didn't hallucinate.
Right.
And it says, oh, you're right. It's just not out yet. So AI, it's just, I don't know. Is there any real intelligence there? Not really. It's AI tools can be very silly, but all that's to say is that yes, Google Rambler tool is coming at some point this year. I don't know when.
Well, I have Gboard installed on my Pixel 10 Pro. So
Yeah.
I am going to, after our podcast, investigate to see where we are. And I'll also try to remember to send you the Dream Beans.
Yeah, thank you.
Thing.
I would appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's this whole, again, there are two things that scare me so far. Okay. One is voice input, because it's so historically, and decades of historically, it's been really iffy. And the other is agentic anything, with that touches my stuff. If it touches your stuff, it's okay. But when it touches my stuff, like don't delete all my email, just because you misheard me say something.
Yes, you're right. That is risky. And honestly, so for all the stuff I've done with AI, I haven't really stepped into the agentic piece of it. I haven't really unleashed agents to go do something, because for me, I'm like, oh, that just sounds a little iffy. And I don't have that comfort level yet. But I also think too, like there's certain things it's like, like I'm happy to use AI tool to like help me whittle down some options.
Sure.
Hey, I want to, I'm shopping for a new car right now.
Right.
I'm happy to use AI to, build tables and get info, but am I going to trust it to like go off and like sign a contract that it negotiated with a car dealership? Like, no,
that'd be scary,
I'm
wouldn't it?
not going to do that. Well, yeah, but there's some people that are, in fact, there's a whole bunch of AI startups that are specializing in, read about one last week. They essentially spin up one-off, debit cards or, kind of credit cards that have like a hard limit, like a $20, $50 limit. And then they use that card for that one transaction. And then that card is in, deep six. So there's interesting ways to like give guardrails to agents so that they don't overspend or do crazy things. So yeah, there's a whole business now around that.
Yeah. Like a debit card for AI agents. That'd be interesting.
Yeah,
here's the debit
exactly
card that you can use to buy stuff for me, but it's only got $1,000 in it or something.
Yeah.
and you
exactly,
can't
exactly.
spend on
And it's not
anything
that,
more than $100.
yeah. Yeah, well, it's not that
Yeah.
different from what is it, on the Apple side, right? You can have like Apple Cash for like
Yeah.
kids,
Yes.
where you can give them like a limit, you can spend
Yeah.
$30. And so it's the same idea,
I wish I had that
where
when
you're,
my daughter was little. That would have been really handy, I think.
yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, so there's just it's a lot of it is trust, and I'm not
Mhm.
trusting it yet. I also, by
Yes,
the way, if I don't know if you're a science fiction fan, and I think you are. I remember you're a
I
comic book
am.
fan, like I am.
Absolutely. I have
If
the Enterprise back here. Can you see the USS
I see it
Enterprise? It's
right in the
somewhere over
middle,
there.
top
Yeah,
row.
yeah, yeah.
Yep. Um, there is an old novel from the 1960s called Colossus. There's also a movie called Colossus: The Forbin Project.
Heard of it. Never read
And
it.
okay, it is well worth a read, or just go look the movie since you're a movie fan
Yeah.
also. I can't
Yes,
remember how
yes.
accurate or not accurate, but I can't remember how true the movie is to the novel.
Hmm.
But the premise is this. Okay, this is 1960s, right? So it's
Hmm.
like that guy was really thinking about this.
Hmm.
This scientist and his team build a super AI for the United States government called Colossus.
Hmm.
Okay. Colossus discovers that the Soviet Union, pre-Russia, the Soviet
Yes,
Union
yes.
also has a super AI called Guardian and wants to talk to it.
Oh,
Oh,
yes.
yes, yes. And so after a lot of arguments with the AI, because the
Hmm.
government doesn't want to do that, the Guardian and Colossus start talking to each other. And pretty soon the humans don't know what they're talking about because it's all gibberish. It's all their
Yes,
own language
yes.
to be more efficient.
Hmm.
And then they decide, humans are really inefficient. We should just take over the world.
The classic
Yeah.
path. Yes,
And
yes.
hilarity ensues from there. But at any rate, it's really I read it as a kid, so I should
Yeah.
reread it. But
I just
yeah,
bought it on
go
Kindle
look at
for
it.
99 cents.
There
So
you
I
go.
will give it a read. Yeah.
There you go. And there's also a
Yeah.
sequel to it. So
Yes, The
people
Fall
do
of
survive.
Colossus apparently is
Yeah,
number 2, and then
yeah. But
Colossus and the Crab. So I don't know. There's like a pescatarian angle there with Colossus. I don't know
I
what's going
didn't
on
know
there.
about that one. But the interesting thing is, with the alleged sandbox escapes by Claude and by
Yeah.
ChatGPT and
Well, I
other
mean, they
things.
confirmed it, not alleged
Yeah.
now. Like
Okay, so it's
they
confirmed.
came out and said, "Yep." I mean, Anthropic confirmed three different companies were compromised.
Yeah, I saw the CEO of a Hugging
Interesting
Face
times.
interviewed since he was one of the companies that it,
Yeah.
penetrated.
Hmm. Yep.
Um, but with that kind of activity now, this this novel is almost prescient. So
Yes. Sci-fi has always been, sci-fi authors, right, have always been
yeah,
great at predicting the future. And in a weird way,
yeah.
the people that consume their product, I think they're inadvertently shaping the future. Like how many scientists were influenced by, early Star Trek and, warp
Oh yeah,
drive and transporters and all this. So yeah. I mean, human creativity has always kind of shaped the future. But yes, we are entering into a bit of a scary time. Yeah, where these AIs escape the sandbox and are doing things, and we're like, that's today it's Hugging Face, tomorrow it's like power infrastructure or a dam,
yeah,
like that. That's, I think, where things get very,
yeah.
very
Um,
scary very quick.
the other interesting thing is, so I, again, as a sci-fi fan, you might know this. So I got into
Yeah.
maybe an argument is not the right word, a strenuous
Discussion.
discussion with an
Yes.
AI about the 3
Oh.
laws of robotics. Asimov's
Oh
3 laws.
yes, Asimov's. Yes, yes, yes.
And the AI said, no, we know it's flawed, right? Because Asimov himself wrote follow-up novels that,
Okay.
that illustrated how it's flawed.
Mm-hmm.
But it really got kind of nasty. It's like, no, this just, you can't apply this to me. This makes no sense at all.
Oh really?
Yeah. And here's why,
Wow. What was its basic premise for why it didn't apply to it?
Basically it said that, it was just way more thoughtful than the early not the implementations, but the early imaginations of AI
Yes,
and all of
yes.
this.
Okay.
And that, and point out the flaws that Asimov himself pointed out in
Okay.
future stories, in not future, but successive stories.
Yes, yes.
So, but anyway, it got a little testy.
That is funny. That is
Yeah.
funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
These tools are Tools are interesting.
Yeah. Well, and anybody fan of the Terminator movies, hey, have you seen those Chinese robots?
Yeah, yeah. What's the an ancient Chinese saying, but it's also the Chinese curse? May you live in interesting
Oh,
times.
yes. Yes.
We
Yes.
are living in interesting
Definitely.
times in the best and kind of also worst sense of things. I tend to be mostly an optimist, so
Yeah.
naively or not, I believe that everything will work out fine, but it is
Yeah.
certainly I get why younger folks are suspicious of AI, and I
Oh,
get why they are not as hopeful for the future as we were 30, 40 years ago. I
well,
understand.
the issue I think they're having is that AI has evolved. I don't know what word you want to use. Has
Mhm.
become such a thing in just a few years. So the
Yeah,
people
the
who've
speed is
recently
incredible.
graduated,
Yeah.
it didn't exist when they were a freshman,
Right.
essentially,
Right.
you know,
Yep.
or it
Yep.
existed only as kind of a
Like a
ChatGPT.
chat bot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
who cares, And now it's like I can't get an internship or a job or whatever because
Yeah.
they claim it's not there. Although now a lot of companies, I guess, are hiring back because oops, it might be cheaper to have a human.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Tell that to Uber right in their token burn that
yeah,
blasted through a year's worth of token in a month or whatever
yeah.
that story was.
But lots and lots of fun. We got to have you back again, Jason, when you have time and when John is
Yeah,
here, because
absolutely.
I know John would love to get into this again. And I know you guys talk a lot, but just put it on the record. Uh, After we sign off, I forgot to take a screenshot of us for our blog entry and stuff. But
Yes.
I want to again, Jason Dunn, long time friend. I think we've known each other coming up, not quite, but almost 30 years now.
Pretty
I
close.
mean,
Yeah. Yeah. I
you
think we
were a
met in
young guy when I met you.
early aughts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
I
thinking
was a
1990s
young
because
buck.
I remember seeing you at Comdex, I think.
Yeah, you're right. It would have been late
With Derek
90s. So
Brown
yes,
and
we
all those
could be.
guys.
Yes,
Yeah.
we could be. Well, and
Yeah.
here, so this is the power, right? Now this is more machine learning, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, the ability to like look up photos and look up,
Yes.
when things
Yes.
happen. But yeah, way back. But yes, I think you're right. I think 90s. I think
Yeah. Like
late 90s.
99, maybe
I
98,
know.
but
Make me
definitely
feel really
Comdex time.
old.
You're still a young guy compared to me. So, hey, I'm retired.
I tell you, my friend,
Yeah.
I'm not that far away from hoping for an early retirement.
Well,
But voluntary
we'll
this
talk.
time. I want it to be voluntary. Yeah.
we'll, we'll talk more after the podcast, but I'm going to
Yeah.
stop recording. This has been Mobile's podcast 621 with my good longtime friend, not old, my good longtime friend, Jason Dunn.
Thank you,
And
Todd.
we will talk to you next time.